Here's something no one really talks about. You cancel plans on a Friday night, and instead of feeling guilty, you feel relieved. Like genuinely, deeply relieved. You pour yourself something warm, you sit in your favorite spot, and the quiet wraps around you like it was waiting for you to come home. And for a moment, everything just settles. Then Monday comes. Someone at work asks what you did over the weekend, and you say, not much, because of the truth that you spent 11 hours alone and it was the best you've felt all week sounds like something you'd need to defend. Like you'd need to explain that no, you're not depressed. No, you're not lonely. No, nothing happened. You just like being alone. And somehow that's the hardest thing to get people to believe. Here's what gets me about this. We live in a world that treats socializing like oxygen. Like if you're not constantly surrounded by people, something must be wrong with you. The word loner still carries weight, doesn't it? It sounds clinical. It sounds like a warning label. But what if the way you recharge, the way you think, the way you process the world, what if it was never a flaw? What if your brain is just wired differently than what the culture decided was normal? Let me show you what's actually going on. There's a concept in personality psychology called the introversion spectrum, and most people completely misunderstand it. They think introversion means shyness. It doesn't. Shyness is about fear, the fear of social judgment. Introversion is about energy. It's about where your battery charges. And for roughly 30 to 50% of the population, that battery doesn't charge in a crowd. It charges in stillness. Back in the late 1960s, a psychologist named Hans Eysenck proposed something fascinating. He suggested that introverts have a naturally higher baseline level of cortical arousal, which is a fancy way of saying your brain is already busy, it's already processing, already stimulated, already doing a lot with a little. So when you walk into a loud party or a room full of strangers, you're not starting from zero the way an extrovert might. You're starting from 60. And everything around you turns that dial up even further. No wonder you want to leave after an hour. Your brain isn't bored of people. It's full. And this is the part most people miss. When you choose to be alone, you're not avoiding life. You're regulating it. Your nervous system is doing exactly what it's supposed to do. It's seeking the environment that lets it function at its best. That's not antisocial. That's intelligent self-management. Think about it like this. Some people's phones charge faster on low power mode. That's you. You're not broken. You just need fewer background apps running to get back to full. Now here's where it gets really interesting. There's a difference between being alone and being lonely, and your brain knows it even if the people around you don't. Loneliness is the gap between the social connection you want and the social connection you have. But if you're someone who genuinely enjoys solitude, that gap doesn't exist. You're not missing anything. You're exactly where you want to be. And research backs this up. A study published in the British Journal of Psychology found that highly intelligent individuals actually reported greater life satisfaction with less frequent social interaction. Not because they disliked people, but because they were more effective at directing their time toward meaningful goals when they had fewer social obligations pulling at them. And I think that says something important. It says that the desire for solitude isn't a deficit. It's a strategy, one your brain figured out long before you had the language to explain it. But here's the tension, right? Knowing this intellectually doesn't always protect you from the social pressure. Because the pressure isn't just external, it's internalized. You've been absorbing messages your whole life. That popular is better. That busy is productive. That alone is sad. And those messages get under your skin in ways you don't always notice. You might catch yourself saying yes to plans you don't want, feeling vaguely ashamed for preferring a quiet night, wondering if maybe everyone else knows something about happiness that you somehow missed. You didn't miss anything. You just process happiness differently. There's actually a term for this in psychology. It's called the need for cognition. Some people have a higher internal drive to think deeply, to engage with complex ideas, to sit with something until it clicks. And that kind of thinking doesn't happen well in a noisy room. It happens in the shower, on a long walk, at 2 in the morning when the world finally shuts up. If you've ever had your best idea in total silence, that's not a coincidence. That's your brain telling you what it needs. And honestly, this one surprised me too when I first read about it. There's an evolutionary angle here that doesn't get enough attention. For most of human history, we think of our ancestors as these hyper-social tribal creatures. And they were. But every tribe also needed the watchers. The ones who sat slightly apart. The ones who noticed the thing no one else noticed because they weren't busy talking. The ones who could hold a thought long enough to turn it into a solution. Solitude wasn't a luxury in early human groups. It was a survival function. The people who could sit quietly with their own minds often saw threats, patterns, and possibilities that the group missed entirely. So, when someone tells you that wanting to be alone is unnatural, they're actually wrong on a biological level. Your brain isn't malfunctioning, it's performing an ancient and deeply necessary role. Now, I want to be clear about something. None of this means relationships don't matter. They do, deeply. The research on social connection and health is overwhelming, and I'm not here to argue against it. What I am saying is that the quality of connection matters infinitely more than the quantity. You don't need 12 close friends. You might need two, or one, or even just someone you can text at midnight who gets it. The number isn't the point, the depth is. And here's something beautiful about people who genuinely enjoy solitude. When they do choose to be with someone, they're fully there, not performing, not managing energy, not counting the minutes until they can leave. They chose to show up, which means their presence is a gift, not an obligation. There's something deeply meaningful about a connection that exists because it was wanted, not because it was expected. You know that feeling when you're with the right person and the silence between you isn't awkward? It's just full? That's what happens when two people don't need each other to fill a void. They're just choosing to share the quiet. Let me tell you where I think the real damage happens, though. It's not in being alone. It's in performing togetherness when your whole body is screaming for space. It's in saying yes when you mean no, over and over, until you don't even remember what you actually want anymore. That's where burnout lives. That's where resentment builds. Not in solitude, but in the denial of it. Your energy is not unlimited, and every time you spend it in a way that contradicts what your brain and body are asking for, you pay a tax. A small one at first, but it compounds. And eventually you end up exhausted, irritable, and wondering why you feel so disconnected from your own life. The irony is brutal. You become more isolated by forcing yourself to socialize than you ever would have been by simply honoring your need to be alone. So here's what I want to leave you with. If you love being alone, if silence feels like home, if your richest thoughts happen when no one else is in the room, that's not something to fix. It's something to protect. Your brain isn't broken. It's just running a different operating system than the one the culture keeps advertising. And that operating system has been around for thousands of years. It works. It's always worked. The question was never whether something is wrong with you. The question is whether you'll trust yourself enough to stop apologizing for how you're built. I'd love to hear your experience with this. Drop a comment below. Tell me, when did you first realize that being alone wasn't the same as being lonely? What's your version of that quiet Friday night? Sometimes just reading someone else's answer is enough to make you feel less alone and, well, enjoying being alone.